I am Tara Mortensen, and I was one of the faculty members who attended. And I think I'm just going to let you all introduce yourselves when you come up to talk about your own experiences. But just briefly, what is South by Southwest Interactive? It's a festival, it's a party, it's taco trucks and food trucks. It's overwhelming and amazing, and we had the best time. It focuses on emerging technologies, innovations, and it's sort of become known for introducing a lot of new technologies and coming up with new ideas. So it was an amazing experience, and we also want to thank the Dean and your circle for the support, and Chernoff Newman. It was such a great time. We are ready to go back now. I know this is not a nicely designed slide because it is overwhelming and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of words, but I just wanted a visual of all of the sessions that we attended as a group. So some of these, most of us went to, a lot of us tried to go to many of the keynotes, for example. Some of these sessions, just one or two of us attended, but you talk about getting your money's worth, I think we did. So we learned a completely overwhelming amount of stuff while we were there, and I think we're still processing it. And somebody told us, maybe it was you, Ty, that it'll take 6 months for this to kind of soak in and for us to really figure out what it all meant. Some themes that emerged for us, and I have to say, I think it's a little different watching this on the news than when you're actually there. Because again, we would get home at night and see on the news things that happened that we didn't have any clue about. You just told me about some things that I was like, really? I didn't know that. But being there, from our perspective, some of the themes that emerged included an emphasis on less flat, more immersive and more tactile media. People are more interested in experiences. Data visualization was huge, and so much more than just pretty infographics, but really harnessing the power of big data in all forms of media. Audio and podcasts were huge. Failure as success came up again and again. At least 3 of the sessions that I went to alone really emphasized this, and in the classroom and in the workplace, if you want to foster innovation, you have to allow for failure. Diversity was a big theme in visual representation in the news, in the workplace, the role of media and advocacy, gender and technology. Of course, understanding and marketing to the younger audiences, Gen Z and millennials. Hackathons came up quite a few times, and I'm just now learning kind of what those are, and I think that's something we could possibly incorporate here. Cellular connectivity, authenticity, bringing back the humanness to all of this crazy technology, robots, artificial intelligence, but bringing back the role of emotion in information. Again, humanizing brands, expanding, of course, the implementation of virtual reality and augmented reality, fostering growth in those areas, the emphasis on visually literate audiences and what that means for us as professionals, and of course 360 video was a big theme as well. For students, they did a ton of networking. So this is a select list of many of the people that they talked to, exchanged cards with. I think some of you have been in contact with some of these awesome corporations. So networking was such a big part of our experience, whether we were around the area or at the trade show or at the sessions. They all did such a great job of just going up to people and talking to them and learning more about all of these innovative technologies.
Hi, I'm Andrew Dunn, and I am an information science student at the School of Library and Information Science. And one of my one of the things I want to go into is web design, and I did end up seeing a lot of the web design sessions. However, some of the ones that really popped at me, and ones that I kept thinking about day after day, even whenever we were still at South by, was interactive light projection and then artificial intelligence versus artificial consciousness. So starting with interactive light projection, right now whenever you're at a restaurant, you're at the table, and you need to figure out what the tip is, or maybe see what's on the menu or what have you, you pull out your phone, and that sort of breaks that social interaction that you all share. What interactive light projection does instead, though, is that it projects whatever contextual menu that you need on a dumb object. So in this case, it would be a table or maybe a bar. And from there, you're not actually having to break the social interaction because it's all built into the restaurant itself. It's not something that you're having to pull out and then focus your attention on that. It's simple to use. It's like, I mean, as you can see in the picture there, I mean, you just simply tap the tip however much you want to tip, hit pay, and you're done. And it's all just done through light, no buttons, no screens, no none of that. So the cost of the tech is shrinking. They actually showed, and I didn't get a picture of this sadly, a library where they had a light shining down on a blank book, and as you turn the page, it would actually turn the page of the actual ebook. And so you get that tactile feel of actually turning the pages, but the cost of the book is actually, of like the actual electronics, is less than buying the book itself. And so this basically allows for the combination of analog and digital to definitely create something more. So rather than just having 10,000 screens, 10,000 different things that you have to interact with, and then not being able to interact with the people you're there with, instead you can do what you need to do there and then move on. And here are just some of the pictures. So top left one we already saw. The two on the top and on the right are instances of where you're at the bar. So you have an empty glass, you put it next to one of those beers, and it opens up a contextual menu telling you what kind of beer it is, the rating of it, the alcohol content, what have you. And then once you leave it there, a little light button pops up, and you just press it, and you order it, and you're done. Also, alongside actual functionality, there's also artistic representation for the interactive light projections. So here, you have a wood carving of the map of Austin. And this gentleman here, the one that you see at the bottom of the photo, he set up his lift so that way, whenever he ordered his lift, you would actually see the projected map of where it's going to, where it's currently at, and how long it would take to get there. And the second is the more dense and not necessarily as fun artificial intelligence versus artificial consciousness. I'm just going to bring all of these up now. So, with artificial intelligence, it's definitely goal-directed behavior. And we already have this now. We have it in Siri. We have it with machine learning algorithms. I mean, it's already there because we can program it into microchips. And that's sort of the key word, is that it's software. It's something that you can actually program and create a bunch of if-then statements to create. Consciousness, however, on the other hand, like Terminator or all the things that we sort of fear from what AI can become, is completely separate from where we can go with artificial intelligence because it requires a subjective experience. It requires seeing something and having an emotion from that, something that you've developed, make you feel. On top of this, it cannot be mapped to a silicone-based microchip like we can with artificial intelligence. Instead, it has to be based on a carbon system, so like the human brain or what have you. And it's also extremely complex, and at this point, we really don't actually have the technology to be able to get anywhere close to that. So you don't have to worry about the robot uprising just yet. Yes, sorry. So conclusions for this is that current tech doesn't allow for artificial consciousness, it's only intelligence. And then self-aware artificial consciousness requires a massive surge in current biotech, whether that's quantum computing or just being able to create a super complex artificial brain that we can then map that consciousness onto. And just before I get to that, one of the biggest takeaways that I had from this entire experience was that I finally was able to actually network with people. Because over the past 24 years, I've always had problems talking to people one-on-one or really just having any kind of conversation past 3 minutes of small talk. And so just having to constantly interact with these professionals and learn about their lives and their jobs really just, I don't know, it just helped me get over that hurdle. And so now, even when on the flight back to Columbia, I was interacting with a project manager that worked for some company in Canada, and we were just talking and hanging out and getting to know each other. So that's definitely one of the best things that I got from this whole entire trip.
Hi everybody, I'm Grace Steptoe. I'm a senior visual communications major in the School of Journalism and Mass Communications. I am a graphic designer and I have a lot of interest in visual branding and brand communication. So starting off, let's see. All right, So, Generation Z will make up 40% of all consumers by 2020, and as of right now, Generation Z is kind of unknown to a lot of people. It actually is technically still around high school age, but they're just now coming into their own and becoming a lot more aware. They use social media more than any other generation. They're more multifaceted, they're more socially aware, and they're more active. So they're harder to reach. So I heard a lot about it while I was there. One of the main things that they told us was that basically Generation Z knows when you're advertising to them. They know that you're trying to sell them something. They know what's going on. So at this point, they really want you to tell them what you can do.
You might need this.
Oh, thank you. Is it? Okay.
It's on.
All right. They really want to know, like, what you can do for them, and also if you can provide them with an experience. So direct, no fluff messaging that conveys brand identity is a big one. They are looking for brands that they connect with, either through their personal visual branding or through the services that are provided to them. Social media has provided a bigger platform for Gen Z to voice their opinions and criticisms, and not only do they want to be heard, but they want to be responded to. So for Generation Z, two-way communication is really important in media and between brands and consumers. Technology must be top tier. These kids have grown up all their lives with technology. They grew up swiping around on iPads and stuff. So to them, technology is cool, but it's a part of their life, and they're not nearly as impressed as, I think I am just by seeing like VR and AR and all of that stuff. So one of the things I want to talk about was AR and VR and brand communication. I have an interest in joining the beauty industry whenever I leave college. So one of the sessions that I went to was about how they use AR and VR in the beauty industry currently. And I think the session was very interesting because I feel like the use of AR and VR to provide a functional experience for the consumer can be applied across a bunch of different areas. I tried the UCam makeup app, which is what this picture is right here. They released it a couple years ago, and it's an AR experience where you can try on makeup and things like that. But you can also just straight up try on a lipstick and then buy it from your screen. The new thing that they released while we were there was that you can literally FaceTime like a beauty advisor, and they will try on makeup for you. And then if you like what they put on you, you can buy it directly from the screen. You can even take a picture of a magazine with your phone, and it will take the makeup that is on the model and put it on you and tell you what products they are so that you can buy them. It was a really cool experience, not even just, to apply that to the beauty industry, but these things, as I said, Gen Z is kind of used to like Snapchat filters and things, being on their face. So how can we take this technology and put it into a way where it makes the whole retail experience easier, it makes communication easier, it makes media a lot more interesting and a lot more engaging. I put how can this be applied through different areas of visual branding and marketing. The next thing I want to talk about is the Non-Obvious Company releases a list of trends every year that they predict are going to be, the next big trends of this following year, and then the next year they point out which ones they got wrong and which ones they got right. I think they got a lot right this year because I saw a bunch of these other trends in other sessions that I went to. So a few of them I have is enlightened consumption. This one is basically that, with how easily information can be passed around, people consider more factors of what they're consuming. Consumers are demanding to know exactly how products and services in every category that they consume will affect their own health or affect the environment and society. And that comes along with being a more socially aware generation. Lightspeed learning is that with the help of technology, the road to mastery is shorter thanks to the emergence of engaging bite-sized learning modules. The example he gave for this is that an 8-year-old boy and his younger sister decided that they wanted to go to McDonald's. So the 8-year-old boy went on YouTube, taught himself how to drive, and then drove him and his sister to McDonald's without any sort of crash or even breaking a traffic law. So, that's not always the best example, but people like that, you can learn guitar, you can learn a different language, and just about anything nowadays, thanks to how much information can be shared through technology and the internet. Human mode in an automated world. This has a lot to do with growing technology and AI and all sorts of things like that. As we interact with more technology and robots, for everything from making the perfect salad to vacuuming our floors, the interactions we have with real people may become more precious and sometimes more desirable. So people are going to start wanting the human mode, just like whenever you're talking on a phone to a robot and you're just like, please let me speak to a human. That feeling, they're predicting that feeling is going to spread throughout all sort of industries that really utilize technology. So even as this tech is really cool, we have to remember that human connection is always our best tool. The anti-stereotyping and branded benevolence are also two really big themes that I saw a lot. The anti-stereotyping, gender is less relevant today when determining an individual's education level, their profession, their spending power, and their attachment to femininity and masculinity, and it is being removed as a factor altogether from brands, campaigns, and marketing strategies because of this. And then also, today's consumers expect more annual donations to charitable organizations, and they expect brands to love to demonstrate a passion about their chosen causes and put them at the center of their businesses. So they want brands that are a lot more transparent and a lot more upfront about the things that they're passionate about, because that's how you make a better connection. So this was an amazing experience for me. Brian is next, but I just wanted to thank the college and thank Sure Enough Movement for the opportunity.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian McKenzie. I'm an information science student, and once I finish my degree, I'm going to be working as a web specialist, and I hope to continue working in the web space beyond that for the foreseeable future. And let me just get all these up there. And appropriately, most of the sessions I went to focused on design in the web space and also for technology in general. And one of the things that kept coming up in the sessions was that design is actually being led by countries like China and India. A lot of people think that it's mostly the Western world, but it's actually not. We're a little behind on that. And one of the biggest examples they gave was in China, they're moving towards cashless cities, where largely you don't need a wallet anymore. You pay for everything with your phone. Anything you would need with an ID or a credit card, you can just do on your phone. It's like Apple Pay that we have here, but for everything. And this brings up the importance of ethics in design and development, because technology is becoming something you can't opt out of anymore. As it becomes more and more ubiquitous, even with the light technology that Andrew was talking about, it becomes the responsibility of developers and designers to take care of the users. And largely designers have not caught up with this trend. You can see on websites today, all over the place, don't have alt tags for their images, which makes them unusable for the blind, because screen readers can't read them. And this isn't so much a problem now where this just means someone can't use a website, but it becomes more of a problem when it means it becomes more difficult to complete your day-to-day tasks. So that was a major focus of a lot of the sessions, was the ethics of design. One company in particular, Ant Financial, is one of the main companies in China that handles in-app purchases and all of the things you can do with your phone in Beijing. And they were talking about how in their app there's a lot of social responsibility that is, just a good thing to do, but it's also demanded by the population that uses the app. And social entrepreneurship is becoming more of a requirement than something that's just good to do. And what happens is it becomes up to developers and designers to implement these features in ways that are positive and beneficial. And they talked about 3 particular things their company does, which is they have functions in their app where just using it It plants trees to make up for the pollution that many cities in China create, sends money to the needy people in China, as well as helps promote culture in various cities. So that was an example of one designer talking about how ethical design was important in their line of work. And then I also got to go to one session in particular talking about a specific technology now. They had developers for the AMP project, which stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. And this is a very common technology now. If you've ever been on a mobile site, there's a decent chance it's an AMP page. And what AMP technology does is it takes your site and it just makes it run a whole lot faster on your phone. And it's becoming less and less limited with every year. You can put more advanced apps on it, and it makes it even faster, which is important because one harrowing statistic, to me at least as a developer, that I learned was if your site takes longer than 3 seconds to load on mobile, you lose 50% of your audience. And AMP pages really help you get up to speed where you need to be to keep your audience. And for me as a specialist, as a web specialist, it's something I'm going to have to use all the time. And I really think that the sessions I went to will be valuable to me professionally because these ethical issues are things I'll be facing as I design more websites and work on different technologies. And it's going to be important for me to keep up with things like AMP pages in order to do the best work I can do for the people hiring me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Tafoya. People call me Ricky. And before I begin, I want to thank all of you who made this possible, funding this project. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we're all pretty grateful. It was incredible, one in a lifetime opportunity. So thank you so much for this. And without any further ado, I'm a visual communications major. I'm a senior. I'll be graduating in May, hopefully. And something that I want to be doing afterwards is work in advertising or just be part of the creative process of content. I want to be creating content. That's what I want to do eventually. And so I attended a couple panels that talked about this, about the modern advertising industry. And one of them was called What's Next After Advertising? The Jump to Content, which was held by the brand directors of Cadillac, Coors Miller, Hewlett-Packard, and CNN. And they were tossing around a few terms that I thought were pretty interesting and pretty relevant. One of them was brand safety, which means exactly what you think it does. It means that brands don't really like to take risks, major risks at least when it comes to content. They really like to, they want everyone to like them. They want to be humanized. They want to be everything that a person wants. So for example, they don't want to be associated with anything bad. A good example that I can think of is Tide recently has been dealing with a Tide Pod eating epidemic among children. Children are eating Tide Pods and they don't like that. So they start stepping up and they say, we got to do something about this. So they started a campaign saying, hey kids, don't eat Tide Pods. It's not a good idea. They're not as good as it looks. And so they started doing that. So they gotta do damage control for those kinds of things. Yeah. Another example I can think of is a lot of ads, a lot of big companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they started pulling ads from YouTube because they realized that their ads were being shown before videos with inappropriate content. So they said, no, we can't have this. So a lot of big companies pulled their ads from YouTube. This was called in the YouTube community, they called it the apocalypse. So that's what they called it. Like I said, association plays a huge role in advertising because it can either make or break a brand. And so basically what brands want to do, they don't want to spend time and resources doing damage control because they could be using that for something else. And that brings me to my next term, which is how do you stand out in a visually literate world? And what does that mean? Being visually literate means that because we are bombarded every day with so much content. You know, there's advertising everywhere, there's billboards, there's commercials, there's social media, everything. Every day you're exposed to all these things that they're trying to sell you something all the time, to a point where we can now we can distinguish between good content and bad content. We can smell authenticity from a mile away. And that's what brands want to do. They try to be authentic. They want to be honest with you. They want, like my peer Grace was saying, they want to be humanized. They want to be like your friend 24/7. Sounds kind of creepy, but that's where we are right now in the modern advertising world. So they want to tap into emotion. They want to join the conversation. So how do they do it? How do they stand out and at the same time be respectful with everything that's going on? What Cadillac was saying is that they gotta be more dynamic. Brands gotta become more, they gotta mobilize, they gotta become more dynamic. And something that Cadillac did is that they installed 360 cameras in a lot of their vehicles and they streamed the eclipse, the solar eclipse, which was, it happened like, I don't know, like each 1,000 years, a couple thousand years. So they did that, they streamed it on Facebook to a couple of cities. And they had a good viewership. So that's what Cadillac was trying to say. That you need to be more dynamic, and you need to stand out from the crowd. You need to be a little bit more, you need to think outside the box. don't exploit social movements. Like I said, people are becoming more aware of what's going on because we have so much access to information. So I don't know if you guys remember, like a year or two ago, Pepsi released a commercial with Kylie Jenner giving a Pepsi to a cop, and then they were partying afterwards because the war was over and all that, and people were really quick to call him tone deaf. They said, this is not okay. You are exploiting a social movement, which is the Black Lives Matter movement, and you're using it to promote a product. So you gotta be, again, brand safety, you gotta be careful with what you put out, and you need to be aware of everything that's going on. And at the same time, you gotta join the conversation and stay relevant. And yeah, so that's what they wanna do. They wanna be safe, they wanna be honest, authentic, and they wanna be humanized. Honesty. They wanna be your friend, all these brands. So thank you very much. That's what I learned, among other things.
Hello, my name is Michaela Baker. I'm a junior visual communications major. One thing you should know about me is I talk with two hands, so this is going to be hard, only talking with one. So I'm kind of building off of what Ricky said and talking about visual storytelling. So I attended a session that was put on by Killer Infographics, which is a company based out of Seattle, Washington. And they're actually like a visual communications company. So my heart was soaring in this session because I was like, oh, hire me. And then another person, there was a panel of two. The other person was someone from Story Driven, which is based out of Durham, North Carolina. So they were talking about, now this picture's from somewhere else, we can talk about this later, but they're talking about how it's a visual world. We know this. This is not new to us. But how are we marketing for it? How are we standing out in all of the visuals that we're receiving? And they talked that visual storytelling should bring clarity amidst confusion. And of course, 91% of viewers prefer visual content these days. Again, nothing new. We know this. But they kind of talked on some points about how can you make your visuals stand out against the rest. And they gave these kind of points. So think, will they listen? Will they hear your ad and will they think about it whenever it's over? Will they stop on Twitter and view whatever you're posting about? Will they remember? After they read that, if they're having a conversation later, will they remember like, oh, actually I saw an ad on that on Twitter the next day. That's what you want to aim for is will they remember what you're posting or what you're trying to sell or what you're telling a story about? Will they trust you? Again, this goes back to the honesty. You want to be posting correct information, honest information, because that's what's going to build your viewers and that's what's going to make your storytelling even more impactful. And can you put these truths into action? Again, with the honesty, is what you're selling what you are selling, kind of. So those are just kind of things to think about when you are going to start a campaign or when you're in the middle of it or whatnot. Think about how are these things, are you checking all these boxes into your visual storytelling? Side note on this, this is one of the different sessions I went to with Getty Images, but this was really cool and you can research it on your own time. But Getty Images has started a new project where they are trying to take lots of new images to be like real and authentic and true and show people, not be staged. So if you search Getty Images, the power of visual representation, you can actually see all of the different projects that they've worked on, and they are phenomenal. So that's what that picture's from. The other session I went to was a journalism session, so yes, I did get some journalism information in here, and it was about the power of the crowd. So let's see. The session was with David Farringtold, who's with the Washington Post, and he kind of talked about, reporters are not just reporters anymore. We again know this. Reporters are taking pictures, they're recording video, they're recording sound bites, they're doing it all. If you look at a story these days on any website, it's not just text and a picture, it's text and a picture and a video and the tweet hashtag and all the above to make up that one story. So he kind of shared about his experience covering President Donald Trump, and he found out that when he turned to Twitter, he was able to find so much information. So one of the things he shared, long story short, was he was looking into a painting that was sold, a big old painting of President Donald Trump, and it was bought with charity money from Donald Trump's charity. So he was like, hey, does anyone know where this painting is? Is it at this charity? Is it here or there? And within the day, someone had tweeted to him and said, hey, on TripAdvisor, you can actually see that this painting's in the back of this bar at one of Donald Trump's resorts. And so then he tweeted again, hey, is anyone near this bar? And there was a reporter, and he's like, yeah, I'm a couple blocks away. And he checked in for the night and found the painting and took a picture of it and tweeted and was like, hey, I found the painting, how much did this cost from his charity? But that was all through Twitter. So it got me thinking of what, of course, Twitter is real-time information, but are we using our power correctly? So my kind of takeaway was, how can you use the power of the crowd in more than just coverage? A university could tweet out, hey, how is everyone liking blank thing? Students would respond to that. Even as an individual Twitter user, I'll tweet out a Twitter post and say, what movie should I watch on Netflix tonight? And people respond to it because that's just the power of Twitter. Even Facebook and Instagram are the same way. So I just started thinking about how can you use it in your business to connect to customers, to Gen Z and millennials. How can you go a little further? Because why aren't we asking these questions? Why aren't we addressing Twitter when we have huge followings? And how can we really use the power of the crowd to our advantage? So.
Hi, I'm Ivy Spellman. I'm an information science major, and I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for this opportunity. I got to hear some of my favorite people in the world speak, and I just learned a lot, and that I'm excited to apply to my time here. So the first person I saw speak was Melinda Gates. She kind of just talked about women in the workforce and how the workforce itself has changed. It's about 50-50, but the workplace hasn't. And that women every day are still facing regular sexism in the office, whether it be sexual harassment or unpaid maternity leave, what have you. There's so many things that are going on that affect women in their day-to-day lives. She talked a lot about diversity of thought as well, where when we don't have women or other minorities represented in workplaces, that it hinders a business from doing well. When you don't have everyone's input, you're missing out on a target audience that you could be having. She talked about, there was a example where Snapchat filters were not appearing on darker skin tones, and it turned out they didn't have many darker skin tone people as their engineers, so they were missing out on all of these users weren't able to use their product because they didn't have the correct people in their workplaces. And so when we don't have everyone represented, not everyone's input is being put out into the product, and so not everyone can use it as well as they could. And so the lack of representation fosters an unhealthy work environment as well. When there's only one person in the room, you can kind of feel isolated. If there's only one woman on a board or one person of color on a board, you're not going to be wanting to stick up for yourself or, say, hey, that's not right, when there's going to be, 6 other white men disagreeing with you. So we need to have more than just, one person. We're not trying to fill a quota. We're trying to represent all walks of life. And even in this room, there's all types of people. There's not just white men. There's not just white women. We have everyone represented, and that's what we want. And this continues representation in the workplace. I actually work for Code with Classy, which is a nonprofit organization that teaches young girls ages 13 to 18 the fundamentals of computer programming. And so Carly Kloss spoke with Guy Raz from NPR and one of the CMOs from Adidas, and she talked about just going after and changing stuff that you don't see right, creating the world that you want to live in. So she talked about how 57% of all college degrees are earned by women, but only 18% of computer science degrees are. And so she noticed she had actually gone into school to learn computer science, and she was like one of 3 women in her classroom. And so she wanted to change that. And she realized that women often in like mixed gender classrooms don't feel as well represented, they don't feel as encouraged, and so she decided to create a place where young girls could, be open to making mistakes and to learn and to grow. The scholars there have gone on to major in computer science at Ivy League schools. They've started their own camps. They've done so much, and that's me with a bunch of the girls from Austin. That girl on the end, she's teaching like kindergartners the basics of computer science. One of the other girls has started her own camp at her high school. So they all went on to do amazing things. And she talked about how startups with women leaders are more than 2 times likely to be successful, but they don't get funded because people don't believe that women can do it. She said women only hold 25% of computing jobs And in the high-tech industry, the quit rate is more than twice as high for women than it is for men. And that goes to show about the workplace environment, that women aren't getting treated as equally, they're not being respected, their ideas aren't being heard, and they're being harassed almost every day in the workplace. They're more likely to quit because of it. And so Code of Classy decided to create a safe environment that is only girls, where they can feel free to learn and make mistakes and not have to worry about competing with anybody else. This has actually been super helpful for me. This talk was super helpful for me because I'm actually doing an independent study right now with Professor Lewis, building a camp here at USC for high school girls to come learn how to speak or to learn how to code. And that way, you know, we kind of have a gender problem here. I would say in my classes there aren't a lot of women, and so I've noticed that, and obviously Professor Lewis has as well. And so if we bring young girls at a younger age, you know, they'll want to be computer scientists and they'll want to come to USC and learn as well. So this has been a really awesome experience for me, and I'm just really thankful for all that y'all have done.
Oh, I'm Elise Lewis. I'm sorry. I was the other faculty member that went. I'm in the School of Library and Information Science. And I do want to thank everybody for... Thanks. I do want to thank everybody for this opportunity. As you can hear, we learned some amazing things. We've got this handout for you for things to go back and think about and consider some of the standouts that we had. I want to quickly talk about this from a faculty perspective or from the perspective of an educator. There's not a conference, a classroom, a networking event that can expose students to these types of experiences like South by Southwest. The variety of industry there, and you got a little bit of a sample with that, with everything from beauty to AI to VR, computer, journalism, you name it, and it was there. So it was really nice to allow these students to kind of find where they wanted to go and the path that they wanted to pick. That's not something we can replicate here in Columbia or at a conference, or like I said, in our classroom. As an instructor, I think Tara and I both walked away with a ton of resources that we want to implement in our classrooms to see what's out there and to kind of help push these students to go not just on the cutting edge, but more on the bleeding edge. So how are you going to do this? How are we going to keep your skills sharp? One thing that is really a little bit hard to address and kind of hard to quantify are the soft skills that the students really worked on. And Andrew was great, and you could see his progression of his networking throughout the week. But each student had something, and kind of you could see their growth in just 1 week, which was pretty amazing. Whether it was talking to people, whether being able to concisely describe what it is they want to do or the challenges that they face. So that was really an amazing experience as an educator as well. This was not like normal conferences. We heard time and time again, Ty warned us this is going to take a while to let everything kind of soak in and make those meaningful connections. They had a video recap, and there was a gentleman on there who said the same thing, but I think he gave this 9 months to kind of put this all together and make sense out of it. So it was at times very overwhelming. It was incredibly exciting the whole time, and we are very grateful for this experience. So if you have particular questions or would like to hear more about something or some of the things that may not have made the slides, I think everybody is eager to talk about this. And so that concludes the formal part, but we can open up for questions if that works.